The following podcast is an RMG Media production.
It's time we go beyond the handshake. It's time we deepen business relationships and take it to the next level of cultivating and building relationships past that business card exchange and beyond the initial handshake. Welcome to Beyond the Handshake, where we will take a deep dive into getting to know businesses and business owners, why they do what they do in business, what drives them to success, why they work so hard, what they struggle with, what they succeed in, and tips they have for other businesses to learn from their experiences. I am Lucy Miller, founder and CEO of Women Connect. Let's go beyond the handshake. Oh gosh, I'm so excited, Brielle. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I am thrilled to introduce my friend and someone I've worked with professionally for years now, Brielle Cotterman, who is I'm going to read her bio so I get all the amazing details right, but she's the founder and CEO of the Influential Leader Agency. So we're going to hear all about that and her recent rebrand. But Brielle does so many things in so many ways, amazing ways, but she is a publicity expert. So she is also the president of CEO School. So excited to hear about that. She spent nearly 15 years helping clients to craft and scale dream careers to multiple seven figures and beyond by building world-renowned personal brands and leveraging their stories to create speaking tours, author award-winning books, procure media placements, and inspire millions. I know she's definitely helped me in so many ways too. She's also a survivor of attempted murder and domestic violence. So she's an advocate for a world where intimate partner abuse is not tolerated, and survivors are met with empathy. So amazing. Your story is incredible. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited you're here.
Me too. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Fun. Okay. So we're here on the Beyond the Handshake podcast.
Yes.
And the theme of that and the reason is because I want to get to know and highlight and talk with business owners about how they started their business, what business building means to them, what's fun in their business for them, what's successful, what's hard, what that looks like as a business owner and as a businesswoman. So tell us about the Influential Leader Agency.
Yes.
And your rebrand to that. Tell us all about it.
So, do you want me to start back at the beginning?
Yes, start at the beginning, yes.
So, I created Brielle Cotterman Media many years ago, and it was just me. So, I was consulting, and that was at a stage in my life when I was still playing small. I was still hiding behind my story and the things that had gone on in my life. And so it was just me, and it was very manageable as me. I did everything. I did everything.
And that's manageable.
That's right.
I guess.
For a minute.
Right.
For a minute. But for the clients that I was serving at the time and the number of clients, it was perfect. And Brielle Cotterman Media, as you know, has grown and grown and grown and grown exponentially quarter after quarter and year after year. And I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful for the people that we get to serve and the incredible team that we've created. And I recognized, more than a year ago, I recognized that Brielle Cotterman Media isn't necessarily indicative of what the organization has become.
Right. So much more.
Yes, it's so much more. And we have, as you know, a world-class team. We have professional athletes on our team. We have Emmy award-winning broadcast journalists, former Miss America.
Yes.
We have just the most amazing team. And it wasn't about me anymore. The Brielle Cotterman Media name just was not, it didn't represent who we are. It didn't represent all of what we have become. And so we rebranded to the Influential Leader Agency, which
I'm having trouble saying. It's a mouthful, but it is so meaningful.
It is because
the name is so powerful.
It's about, and I talk a lot about being a celebrity maker. But really what that means is thought leadership. And we work with experts in their industry to help them become that influential leader in their space. That doesn't mean somebody's going to recognize you when you walk down the street. But what it does mean is that when people think of your area of expertise or your industry, they're going to think of you. And that's exactly what we want to create. And that's what we do create.
So I know that just from my personal work with you, it's been so eye-opening the ways that you can use your personal brand and your voice to grow your business and grow your influence. And so I've learned a lot from you, even just talking. The simple act of talking or being ready to, if you all of a sudden have a news opportunity the next day, you're prepared because you know what you're going to say.
Because that happens.
It does happen.
That happens in our world. That happens.
It does happen. And being camera ready and just being ready to go and rock it. So I know that you've helped me exponentially grow my ability to do that. But what is your favorite area of media to work with your clients on?
I love speaking. So for me, speaking is not just being a keynote speaker and delivering this, very elaborate talk. Speaking is speaking on a podcast or speaking on the television and knowing your strengths, knowing your stories, having a sound preparation practice so that you can feel confident and comfortable anytime you're speaking.
Right.
Because, and this is the reason why it's so important to me, Luce. Like, I just feel like we take in so much content all the time. We are inundated with highlight reels from Instagram and all of these different places where things are so curated down to the tiniest detail. Yeah. And I always say, I don't want our clients to look overly polished.
Right.
I just want them to shine. And so I think communication is more important now than ever with the onset of AI and all of the technology and all of this, how we're so inundated with it. And it's not a bad thing, but it gives people the opportunity to really step forward and truly shine when they hone their communication skills and their ability to speak and communicate from the heart, authentically, tell the stories that matter, deliver the sound bites, and really connect with people. Because for me, that's always the quickest and the longest lasting, most important way to connect with anyone, be it a strategic partner or someone that you're inspiring or a potential client, is through speaking and communication.
I know. I love to say that I actually really enjoy live TV. Like, this is going to be a very unedited, totally unedited podcast because I feel like we are humans. We're not robots. Right. And it's okay if you stumble on a word. And I do really feel that firmly, even though I do want to be polished and know what I need to say. Of course. However, I do feel like that also relates really well with the normal person that's going to be consuming what you have to say.
And I think it's a matter of poise. You want to be prepared. You want to be poised for that opportunity. So have that thoughtful preparation. And I know that you are probably tired of hearing me say this, but practice makes permanent.
Yes, it does.
And so I'm a huge believer in, I was speaking at a conference not that long ago, and one of the questions was, well, I've told my story on one podcast, but will anybody else want me? Or, I'm just going on all of these podcasts. Well, when you're thinking about where you're going to be showing up, whether it's television or a podcast, or you're writing an article, no matter what it is, or you're speaking on a stage, there has to be an objective. There has to be a strategy behind it. And if you're doing that, if you're very thoughtful, am I showing up in a place where the people that I want to consistently be exposed to my thought leadership are consuming content and information? Then what's my objective? Like, we don't just go out and go on podcasts or go out and we don't put you on television segments just to go out and do television segments. Yeah. It's where can you reach the people that need to hear your story or need to hear your message, and where you can start to create that connection. So being really thoughtful about how you use your platform. Right. Not every publicity win is a win, and not every publicity win that has a 10 million person audience is the right fit for every single person. And I think that's when it comes down to strategy and being really objective and thoughtful about how you use your voice.
Absolutely. So I have really enjoyed being on podcasts, and I'm excited to now host one, but I really love this format too, of being able to have really good conversations. What are some of your favorite podcasts to listen to right now?
I mean,
other than Beyond the Handshake.
Well, of course, Beyond the Handshake. I love the CEO School podcast.
Yes.
It was my
favorite
first.
Of mine.
Yes, I know. And it was my first introduction to Sunira Madani and everything that she does in the world, all of the CEO school. And there again, because it's very real. It's conversational. There's a lot of real stories. It speaks to me because I am a mom and I am a wife and I am a business owner and, all of that combined. And so that's really my go-to podcast. In addition to, of course, I love the Renaissance podcast as well.
Can't forget that one. Yes. I love that. I know. I love how Sunira gets really just like to the heart of the matter on a lot of business thoughts. So, struggles that business owners have and really digging into strategies to fix those. In a lot of my car time, get to learn a lot of things from her.
I know. And so on the podcast was the first introduction, my first introduction to her. And then your event where, we brought Sunira in to speak was so my first negotiation experience with her. So,
and then now you are running,
and now I'm the president of CEO School.
That is so amazing.
Yes.
So
it's the power of networking and connection.
It is. Yes. Connections are so important, and you absolutely took it beyond the handshake. I was going to ask you about this later because you are. I see it in myself, but you are a master connector. So you are a connection creator. And I love that title. And that's, one thing we've worked on together is how we describe what we do at Women Connect, but you do that everywhere you go. And so
I do. And, I think it's an art form really. And I think it's something that you can improve. Even if you're not naturally inclined. I think some people are really naturally inclined that way. I feel like I'm naturally inclined that way, and so are you. But I do believe that it's something that you definitely can hone. And I was having a conversation last night at dinner with one of the gals down here, and we were talking about just listening, like active listening, how beneficial it is in communication and networking and opportunity. And I'm always the first person to make an offer of how can I help someone.
Right. Yeah.
I believe wholeheartedly, and I know we're really aligned this way. For me, the most powerful form of networking is showing up in service of people, because I do know so many people and I do have so many great resources. So I'm always really cognizant and thoughtful, especially when I meet someone that is very intriguing or that I do feel like there's an opportunity to be a potential strategic partner or potential client. What can I offer them of value that would help them?
Well, and the more great people you have in your sphere, the easier it actually is to be a connector. And it
100%.
starts. So if someone's not naturally inclined, if they can get involved and start meeting more people and learning about what they do, the next time they meet Sally, that could be a really great connection to Brielle. I do feel like it can be more innate in them too.
Yes, 100%. And so then that comes back to that strategic reputation building and personal brand building so that when they do meet Sally, they think of Brielle. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think our work, definitely goes very hand in hand with thoughtful connection and networking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so for the influencer, I'm going to get it right. Influential leader agency. I'm sorry. We're going to get it right by the end. Who is an ideal client for you? Because I know you work with in lots of areas of media.
We do. So basically there's 3 segments of work that we do. And you know this because you've gone through this with us. So we look at where you are and we do an audit and we build and create a really fantastic personal brand. So for me, a personal brand is something that it's how you leave people feeling. And so we build that personal brand, and we all have a personal brand. It's just whether or not we know it, whether or not we've curated it or put any energy and effort behind it. And then we strategically build credibility, authority, and reputation through publicity. And then we also do speaking engagements, literary deals, partnerships, sponsorships, collaborations, all of those pieces. And our ideal client is definitely someone who is an expert in their industry, someone who's very good at what they've done. I think our forte is really when we have those people who have been like heads down, doing the work, building the process or the program or the offer, their advocacy, whatever it might be. And then they look up and they've gotten to a certain level of success and they really realize, if I want to get to this next level, people have to know who I am. They have to know what I stand for.
To also be willing to share that.
Exactly. And I have to kind of come out behind the curtain a little bit. And I mean, that was my own journey as well. You know, when I started Brielle Cotterman Media, like I said, I really hid behind my story and I thought, I'm going to be able to do this and just do this for other people. And I'll just be this kind of behind the scenes person.
That makes it all happen.
Yes. And even though I'm still that behind the scenes person for a lot of people, it really doesn't work that way in this day and age. People care about founders. They care about your social cause. They care about your heart. They care about your story. And so when I finally did step out from behind the curtain and go through that same process that we go through with our clients, for me, my soul's work, like I felt so aligned that I knew that I was doing exactly what I was intended to be doing. So that was a really phenomenal experience. And that's really what we hope for all of our clients. Because as you know, sometimes when you step in front of the curtain, when you start the keynote, when you go on the television show, when you start going on podcasts, you have to be prepared. You know, there's a lot of questions. How do I show up as my best and most authentic self? How do I convey and communicate verbally who I am and what I stand for and what I do in the world? And we really just take all of that out. You know, we do all in-house media training and we want everyone to feel confident and comfortable speaking up and using their voice and sharing their story. And so people who are in a place where they're the expert in their industry, but they're really longing to be that thought leader, that's who we help. That's who we can help the most.
Okay. Love that. Well, I want to talk about pulling a story out of someone.
Okay.
We did this to me.
Yeah.
So for, let's say, the average gal who feels like she's had a good life, not a major drama or trauma, which is not going to be everybody, you know, works really hard. Like, this is where I came into play with you. And I'm like, I don't really have anything special
I know
about myself. I'm really just, I'm just an average gal and I don't have anything. And there was some things and we were able to talk through that. And it's interesting, the more we've talked about, you know, my struggle as a teenager with a severe case of rheumatoid arthritis and how that has still impacts me as an adult, but the overcoming of that, I feel like that has really probably driven a lot of my hard work and the grit I have to push through even when things are really hard. And there's more to that as well. But I really feel like our conversations about that to help me see that in myself also gave me more confidence to, you know, be proud about some of those things too.
Good. I'm so glad.
So what would be some things that you could tell someone that maybe would feel that way, or to think through, like, you know, not to like make up a reason to have a story, but what?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for getting to the place where you do own that story and you do recognize how significant it really is, and what a representation of who you are. And secondly, you're absolutely right. Not every story has big T trauma or drama. I always say that you don't have to have that eat, pray, love, or eat, love, pray, whatever, eat, pray, love moment where you sell everything and move to Bali for your story to be interesting and inspiring. My story has that, but that's not everyone's experience. And the important part is that you recognize no matter what your story may be, it's a part of who you are, and it's you're opening yourself up. And so no matter what your story is, even if you think that it might be the most plain Jane, boring, whatever, there is someone that needs to hear it. And if you don't take the time to recognize the value in it and start sharing your story, you're going to be depriving that person of the inspiration and connection that they deserve. And that was really my first step in sharing my story. It was the people who needed to hear it, because it was really hard for me to take ownership of it and step forward.
But there are so many people that needed to hear your story.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I hear all the time, I don't have a story. You know, I hear that all the time. So it's one of two things. It's either I have so many stories I don't know where to begin,
right?
Or I don't have a story. So this is, you know, I don't even know what to say here. Yes. And which is not true. We all have stories, and I don't care what it is. when you are overcoming things in everyday life, when we talk about a story, there's 3 parts. Who were you before? That moment in time that is the climax of the story or the transformation. And then who are you after? And it could be something so simple, but on a day-to-day basis, there are people who are experiencing those sorts of things. And you have to recognize the value. So I always think about that moment in time. Going to that moment in time is the best way to identify transformational moments throughout your life. And then also writing it in third person. So if you're in the place where you're struggling telling your story or identifying it, write in third person. She did this. This is who she was. This was the moment in time. Then she became this. And then it gives us this arm's length distance from the emotional piece. And it really allows us to appreciate far more how inspirational those stories can actually be.
Amazing. Yes. I feel like probably you're right. There's those 2 camps, no story or I got a lot.
I don't even know.
Help me pick my one. I think that that's a great exercise because there is something in all of us. And if nothing else, there is something special in all of us that the light can be, shined on.
100%. And when you create connection, so when you think about like the science behind storytelling, we've been telling stories since the beginning of time. That's the reason why there's like hieroglyphics sketched into from the cavemen, in the caves.
Yeah.
And it's the best and most, we're created to communicate that way. So you have to really figure out a way to communicate through story in order to create the connections and inspire actions. Because that's what we do when we share that moment in time or that transformation. We create a connection. Oh, she went through that too. I knew I felt connected to her. I knew I liked her. And it doesn't have to be the same challenge. It doesn't have to be the same experience, but it evokes that emotion within us. And then on the rise, we share, I was able to do this after. That's when you inspire action. Oh, if Lucy can do that, then I can do that too.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I have some more business-related questions for you in a minute. But first, I want to kind of really quickly talk through a few scenarios. So let's pretend there is a woman that is wanting to start to think about more speaking engagements, but she's really nervous talking to a crowd. So what would be some quick tips you could give her to be more confident going on stage, whether it's a crowd of 10 or hundreds? What are some on stage calming things that you could say or tell us some tips?
Okay, so I will go back to practice makes permanent.
Okay, yes.
So practicing, and really a lot of people get really confused about public speaking and they say, oh, well, she was off the cuff or, she didn't have to prepare. And there's really no such thing as off the cuff. When you think about people who've been doing this for years and years and years, it's been years of practice and preparation. So thinking through that same lens of what is my objective? What are the 3 things that I want my audience to walk away with?
Okay.
Have a strategy and a structure. So what's my objective? What are the 3 things I want my audience to walk away with? And how do I want to leave them feeling, going back to that personal brand? So even if you can put that much of a structure to your conversation on a panel, you are going to come out so much ahead of the person who didn't take the time to prepare. You're not going to be as nervous because you have in your mind, this is what, yes. And, and then of course, we drill down from there, these 3 things. What are 3 stories that support those? Because story is the quickest way to create connection.
Yeah.
And I want to just throw this out there, like knowing your call to action, always having a call to action. Even if you're on a panel, even if you're...
Like how to connect with you.
Exactly.
How to find you.
How to connect with you, how to find you. Once you're talking about the woman who wants to do this, but she's a little bit nervous. So keeping it simple to begin with.
Okay, simple.
Strategy. What's your objective? What do you want to accomplish when you're up there? And get really crystallized on that. Maybe it's, I want people to join my email list, or maybe it's, I want people to see who I really am, or I want people to hear a side of me that maybe they haven't seen and experienced. And then what are 3 things you want to leave the audience with? And then underneath each of those, what's a simple story that supports that?
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be a very long story. It could be as simple as those 3 bullet points.
Okay.
This is who I was, this happened, and now I'm doing this. And simplify all of it. And then I am not a fan of scripting talks. I mean, when you do a TED Talk or a TEDx, you have to script those. So every talk is different. You have to submit those for approval. So you will have different experiences as a speaker, but getting really crystal clear on those bullet points of what you want your audience to take away is going to compartmentalize your thinking and start to give you some structure so that you're not like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm so scared. It's like overwhelm. Instead, leave that aside and start to structure your thinking.
Okay, so even down to like what to wear on stage.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, there's some rules, that I think can help people. Just knowing ahead of time what your backdrop is going to be.
Yes, so important.
Knowing ahead of time as much as you can. Sometimes you don't know.
Right.
But
knowing who your audience is too.
Knowing who your audience is, knowing what colors look good on you. Just being thoughtful, where we're sitting today, like I have on a long skirt. I can't tell you how many times I have women who show up at an event and they don't realize they're going to be sitting and then they're going to be up on stage and they have just a skirt or a dress that doesn't go past their knees.
Right.
So then it becomes an uncomfortable situation where they're having to, keep
their hands.
Yes. Which, as long as you know how to handle it, that's fine. White is a tricky color to wear on stage.
Yeah.
It's can be very sheer with lights on it.
You're
polka dots
on it. Some people would not have thought about that.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
And the last thing that you want to do anytime you speak is have people be distracted by the clothing that you're wearing or not wearing.
Right. Or see later you wish you hadn't worn that.
Exactly.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
Exactly. So sticking to solid colors is a really safe bet if you're going to wear a pattern, a bigger pattern, not polka dots and stripes are a big no-no because on camera they're going to move.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't know that, but even pinstripes sometimes will move.
Okay.
So stripes and polka dots are a big no-no. Big patterns are okay, but I would just say play it safe, stick to solid colors, and know what colors look good on you. Like jewel tones, lavender and purple is the most flattering color across the board on the majority of all skin tones and with all hair colors.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So
it's a good color.
It is. Yeah. It's a great color. But sticking to what color works for you or just a solid color in general is going to be safe. I love monochromatic dressing on the stage. And really remembering that while you do want to look amazing, the focus should be on the message, more so than the clothes that you're wearing on the stage.
I love that. Well, thank you for those hot stage tips. Okay. So transitioning to more businessy behind the scenes questions. So your agency has grown with your rebrand. You've got an amazing team in place. How has that shifted your role with what you're doing day to day and how you're advising clients?
Yeah. So I'm still involved in the strategy for every single client.
Okay.
And at this point, I don't foresee a time when I won't be. Because, and you and I talk about this a lot. I think we try to clone ourselves or recreate ourselves as much as we can in our business. And I'm happy if I can find someone, I think it's a good move if I can find somebody who can do it 85 or 90% as good as I can, then I feel really good about that hire. Strategy from that perspective, what we do is so unique. We're not a typical PR agency. I cannot go out and hire a senior PR executive to come in and do what I do because what we do is so much more holistic than that. It's the big picture. It's who do you want to be in this industry in a year? Who do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to see yourself in 10 years? And so from a strategy perspective, everyone gets me.
Love it.
I work with our PR team. We also have a personal branding expert on the team. And then, of course, we have pitching experts. And then Heather French-Henry, which you know quite well, is our VP of media training. And so our strategy, my role still, every client that comes in, our team does a full audit. So I review all of that information. I handle the first onboarding call with every single client because I want to be sure that I get a really clear picture of who they are and what they stand for. And then I craft the strategy and the team executes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I know everybody probably wants to make sure they get Brielle taking a look at their situation. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay. So that has been a shift for you to not being the one doing everything, but
Exactly.
being kind of more of the driver of the boat and then having people help you with that.
100%. And, and it's taken me years to build the team that I have. And like I said, 4 years, I did do everything, not because I necessarily wanted to do everything. I mean, nobody goes into business because they want to be their own bookkeeper,
For sure not.
But that's just a part of building a business. And I think there's a lot of misinformation for business owners out there of like, oh, I got to 7 figures and so fast, but I think that the truth is, it's just like with PR. Sometimes there's those kind of flash in the pan, here today, gone tomorrow type things. And if you want to build a legacy brand, if you want to really build a substantial business and impact that has longevity, it takes time.
It absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that that's hard for businesses when they start. They may not see the needle move as fast as they want.
Right.
Or they do and then stagnate before they're able to make another jump. So I feel like I've heard Sanira say this, but what you do to get you to 6 figures is not going to be the same as what gets you to 7. And so it's going to always be interesting, the things you have to tweak and pivot and start to do differently or looking through a different lens to be able to find that next level of success.
Absolutely.
For the growth.
I agree completely. And it's learning new skill set and honing new areas of expertise. And, I'm a doer. I'm very busy all the time. I love my work. I love working with our clients. I love what we create for them and what we do for them and with and for them. And it is hard for me sometimes not to jump in and try to execute.
Yeah.
But I know that the role that I'm playing within the Influential Leader Agency at the ILA, we have a great team and I have to stay in my lane and everybody else stays in their lane. And then that's when things work the best. So by trying to kind of go in and fix things or trying to
might get in the way.
Exactly. And then I get in the way of growth and opportunity and learning. And so that's been the biggest struggle for me, is just trusting the process and trusting what I have built and the team that I have created in a way where I am really solid in my role in the organization.
I think that's a really good reminder for a lot of probably CEOs that are, the delegation is hard.
It is. It's hard.
Once you've delegated, then it's hard to not keep going back in to help. But if you can just let them do it.
Yes.
They're there for a reason.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Well, so what would you say, because you've had so much success and you're obviously doing what you were, made to do. You were born to be, what you were, all that you offer the world. But what would you say has been some of the hard things? What are things you've had to overcome or new skills you needed to learn?
Yeah. So I'm a big picture person by nature. More of a visionary. I've always figured out how to get things done, but I recognize in myself that I haven't always maybe done it the most efficient way because of just who I am as a person. That's just not who I am. To be very structured and organized with SOPs and very predictable, because that's, boring to me. That's just not who I am. So
who wants to do that?
No, some people do, and they're amazing, and I love them.
We need them.
I love them, but that's just not me naturally. So I have really had to force myself, because our business from a growth perspective just was it has been for years just booming and booming and booming. And
you're probably just keeping up.
Right. Yeah. So you cannot sustain that level of growth without kind of pulling back the reins and taking the time to build systems and processes and procedures so that other people can come in and do things. And this is just the person that I am, Luce. When I was in that situation, I was so frustrated. I was like, well, why is she not helping me do this? And why is he not doing that?
And don't know.
Exactly. Because nobody else could see into my mind all of the things that I wanted for each and every one of our clients. Because we have our work is very deliverable heavy. I mean, it's very intensive. We're creating media bios and media kits and podcast graphic. And, like when people go on shows and we're helping them to leverage their media afterwards. And so there's just a million deliverables there. And so really taking the time to build out SOPs about briefs and how things should be structured. And if this happens, then what? And so that was a big struggle for me. But I will say there's no way we could be where we are now had I not had I not taken the time to be strategic and actually do it.
I feel like I've in my business have done that this year. So this was the year where it was like, okay, we have got to get some better systems and processes in place because we're growing so fast. Balls are going to get dropped. Like things are going to not go right if we don't have a better process. And then that way other people know how to handle things if I'm busy doing other things and they can't read my mind.
And they can pick up the ball.
And they can pick up the ball. Yeah. So important. I feel like there is probably always a point in a business if they haven't done that from the beginning that it's time to take a second and do that. Okay, I want to switch gears to networking, which I love to call networking just connecting because I just love that word. So you are a master connector. We already talked about this.
Thank you.
And, the connections that you make and then form and then build upon are just incredible. But I love to ask this question. Is there someone or some event or time that you could point to as saying a connection that has been pivotal to your success or that led you to meet, the next right person? Is there something that you could?
Yeah. So I feel like I have been collecting relationships my whole life, basically.
Collecting relationships. That's
Yeah. Because, not, and I, now that I say that out loud, Sanira does say that as well, that she collects relationships. But I mean, that makes so much sense to me when I heard her say that on her podcast. Cause I was like, I've been doing the same. Like I have valuable business relationships that I have referred back to, from 20 years ago.
That's
because
amazing.
I worked in brick and mortar and in the real world and then the corporate before there was the onset of online business as well. So many really, really valuable connections and introductions. But I mean, and when, you sent over the sheet for the podcast, I saw that and I was like, well, you it was totally you. I would 100% say you because,
I remember when I first met you.
I know.
At the wine bar.
Yes. And we were like, we're going to take over the world together.
I'm like, we've got to take this further. Yes.
And for me, it's always been it's really important that I work with a lot of people that I consider my friends.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I really like and I enjoy spending time with. And I know for my non-entrepreneurial friends that I'm not a great friend sometimes. I know that about myself.
I understand that too.
And because at the end of the day, I feel like my family and my business sometimes really suck all of the life out of me. Not in a bad way, but everything I have to give goes there. And I don't have a lot left over for people who are not in that space where, and I will text you and be like, hey, what's going on here? Or, hey, I was thinking about this. What are your thoughts? And I have so many incredible women in my life that I consider friends and confidants and strategic partners. And so for me, that's always the best of all of the worlds when they all come together that way. But not just collecting relationships, but building on those relationships and making sure that I'm always acknowledging the value that these people bring to my life. So 100% you.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You. I feel the same way about you. It's amazing. I love that phrase though. I don't think I've heard that, the collecting relationships, but that is true. And as long as you continue to be your authentic self and be a good resource, even somebody from 20 years ago will still think of you fondly.
That's
and
right.
as you run into each other, it can just, flourish again. So
That's right.
I love that. I love
And
that phrase.
and that goes back there again to your personal brand. I mean, if what kind of personal brand do you have? How are you leaving people feeling if somebody, from something that you've done previously reaches out for a resource and you are not even capable of connecting with them?
Absolutely. Well, so Beyond the Handshake, this is the name of my podcast, and chose that for a reason because I truly feel relationships are built when you take it that next step. So not just passing the business card, not just shaking the hand and moving on to the next person. So what does that mean to you, and how do you implement that? You've already said a few of that.
So I think that Beyond the Handshake is where the real magic happens. I think that's where the real opportunity happens. And recognizing that when you meet someone, if you connect with them and you let that go cold, I always say time kills all deals. And it's the same with connections. It's the same with relationships. If you meet someone and you're intrigued, but you're so busy that you don't take the time to think, oh, is there someone I could connect them to that would bring them value? Or is there a book I could send them? Or should I just shoot them a quick text with a picture that I took of us? Hey,
that's smart.
Or tag them on social media. Like time kills all deals in business and in relationships. So I think really spending the time nurturing, and I'm not talking about like a huge time investment. I'm talking about being thoughtful. And one of the things that we teach in our Celebrity Incubator program, and I think that you've actually been in this workshop with us, is it's basically just nice manners.
It's nice manners.
Sending a note, I mean, I went through some health things earlier this year, and I can't tell you how loved and supported I felt. People who sent me blankets and candles and food and flowers, or just even a text saying, I'm thinking about you, and just taking the time to follow up, even if it's a text message, even if it's, sending a handwritten note, I'm a huge fan of. I think it's really important. It's really powerful because it doesn't take a ton of time, but it does take intention.
Yeah.
And that makes people feel special. And isn't that the way you want people to feel when you're not in the room?
Absolutely. Well, I love that. Yes, you definitely take your relationships beyond the handshake. And I feel like I've learned so much from you today. Thank you for being on. And
thanks for having me.
I'm so excited for all that you have ahead with ILA. I'm just going to say ILA.
Yes, that's ILA.
Yes. And we can follow you on Instagram. Tell us what that Instagram handle is.
Follow me on Instagram. It's Brielle Cotterman. So it's Brielle Cotterman, Cotterman. And we'll have that, I'm sure, in the show notes.
Absolutely.
And then if you want to hop into my DMs, just send me Beyond the Handshake. And then we will send over a really awesome resource about storytelling.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yay. Well, thank you for being on today.
Thanks so much
We're going to do so much good together.
That's right.
We're doing it.